Hey guys, so Dr. Diggs just posted a video exposing the dark age of monetization. So I wanted to look into it and see if what he's saying is true. So, are we entering a dark age of monetization? I'll be the judge of that. Alright guys, so welcome to the second episode of Judgment Zone. So what I do in Judgment Zone is I basically compare something to what it was in the past and see if the changes benefit us or if they really benefit Gumi or monetization or anything like that. The last episode was comparing the new 9-step to the previous 9-step, and in this episode I sort of just want to talk about basically what Dr. Diggs is calling the golden age of War of the Visions versus the dark age of monetization. Alright, so basically that's exactly what I just said, just to compare the state of the game from when it was the Final Fantasy X collab and see how we're doing now and see if it's gotten any better or worse. Alright, so let's just get into it. So the first slide here, this is actually a slide from Nerd Night. I actually couldn't find this banner, a screenshot of this banner, and he was the only one that I could find it on, so I took his screenshot. This is the 10UR summon from the Final Fantasy X event. As you can see on the top left, it says first anniversary. So I just wanted to use this as the de facto standard for what these festival medals are about, these anniversary medals. So as you can see here, you get 10 UR units guaranteed from this pull. It's a 10-time summon, and you also get 100 of the medals. So as we all know from having played back in Final Fantasy X, these medals exchange 1-to-1. One medal gave you one shard of a unit. I don't remember if it was 2-to-1 for double cost, but let's just assume it was 1-to-1. So these medals were really good. They're like the de facto standard for what a good exchange rate is in the mock shop, and they were really great. They were a really great way to get medals and build your units and, exchange them for shards. So this was the original one, 10 UR units and 100 of the festival medals. So this is the current one. This is my own screenshot. And so what I sort of wanted to point out was, yes, we do get a crappier currency in terms of the 9 million downloads medals. We get 100 of those, but we also are now getting star medals. So considering these are all UR units and there's 10 of them, we're getting 20 star medals apiece, and there's 10, so that is 200 medals total. All right, getting into the next slide, this is the breakdown of how many shards you're gonna get for those medals. So if we sort of look through, starting at the top, the first 20 medals cost 1 apiece, so that's a total of 20. The second 20 medals cost 2 apiece, so that's a total of 40. So that's 20 plus 40. So as you go down the line, to spend 200 medals, you're going to end up getting to the 80 shard spot, and you're going to spend all your medals there. So if we think back to the anniversary medals, we have 80% of what we would have had from those medals. So we can exchange 80 shards instead of the 100 shards that we got. So this isn't even counting the 9 million medals yet. We're going to get into that in a bit. But this is just from the star medals. Granted, this is if you're building a brand new unit. If you pull for the unit from the 9-step or from the pity banner, you're probably going to get star medals along the way. So this is assuming for Charlotte. This is when Charlotte was the banner unit when this came out. So assuming you pull Charlotte, you're probably going to pull some star medals from the 9-step or from the pity meter. So you're probably going to end up using some of those star medals before you even get into the star medals from this 10 UR pull. In the ideal case, the star medals are worth 80 shards, but considering you're going to have to pull for Charlotte, we're going to have to kind of go sort of by the last step there. So going by that last step, 200 medals at 10 apiece only gets you 20 shards, which is actually pretty low. I will definitely agree with what Dr. Diggs says. That is actually very, very low. the conversion rate gets worse as you go on. In addition to the star medals, you're also getting Mog medals, which we all get. At this point, most of our units are at the EX levels. So if you were to get Mog medals from all of those shards, you're going to get 400 Mog medals total. That's 40 for each UR unit times 10. So that's only if you already have all those units. So we're kind of thinking of the ideal case. So what I want to do is compare the Mog medal shop now to what it was back then. So we're going to use 400 just to keep it as an easy example. Okay, so let's assume we get 400 medals, and what I'm looking at is the MindSphere shop. So you're going to be able to exchange your medals for MindSpheres. And so the way the MindSphere shop works is a little bit different from the star medals. So for the first 50, it's worth 5. For the second 50, it's worth 6. So it's going to be like a slightly different conversion rate, but the second step isn't quite as bad as the jump in star medals. And so for the first 50, you're paying about 250 just to get those 50. So that's 5 times 50 basically. And for 51 through 100, you're paying 300. So that's 6 times 50. Okay, so considering that if we have 400 Mog medals, we're going to be able to do that first 50 no problem. And then with the remaining 150 medals, we're going to be able to get 25 total shards, 25 total MindSpheres out of this. Shards and MindSpheres are sort of interchangeable, as you guys kind of already know. So I know this sounds like I'm sort of pulling shards out of nowhere because we've had Mog medals for forever. And so let's get into the next step, the next slide, I should say. And so this, I took this screenshot from Paladia's video, so credit to her. This is the old MindSphere shop in the Mog shop. So what it was before is that we were actually limited to 150. We could only get 150 total MindSpheres bought with Mog medals. So 150 times 5 is 750 Mog medals required to buy all of these. Back in that day, it was 5 straight up, no matter how many you bought. It was 5 all the way. So using the calculation of taking 400 Mog medals and how many shards can you get with 400 Mog medals, you can get 80 total shards. So currently with the new system, it was 75, and with the old system, it was 80. So it's a whole difference of 5 entire shards. Wow, what a difference. So that's with the new conversion rate of the new MindSphere shop. All right, so let's continue onward. So here is another brand new addition that we did not have in the Final Fantasy X anniversary event, and that would be guild summons. So guild summons basically give you an opportunity to get at least 10 shards of the new unit per day. And so they usually last for a week. And so in total, you can get 70 minimum guaranteed. There is also a possibility of getting a few more, 3 at a time, but that doesn't seem to be as likely as we would want it to be. So I kind of just wanted to point out that yes, you do have to work to get some of these, like you do have to farm guild slappers, but you don't have to spend any of your Vizier to acquire these shards. I also wanted to point out that if you manage your Hiroki's gift decently, you can use that to sort of get these pretty easily most of the time. So it's been sort of happening every month that we get the Hiroki's gift, and you know, you can use them on these, or you could use them elsewhere, but I think you have a pretty decent shot of just buying guild shards. During the Dwayne and, you know, Zazan event and everything, there's like 5 banners to pull on, so that was definitely a little bit harder to do, but I think in general, they're usually pretty manageable. All right, so let's keep going here. So let's kind of just recap. Currently for the banner unit, like let's say you just pull a new unit, you're getting your 200 star medals from the 10 UR summon, So that's going to give you 20 to 80 shards. The Gil Summons are going to give you 70 shards. So if you are able to get 80 shards from the star medals, you really only need like 20, and you've already caught up to what you have in the golden age of having 100 anniversary medals. If you start off with 20, if you're already maxed out on star medals for the new character that you just pulled, you start with 20, 70 shards. 20 plus 70 is 90, and you're already pretty close to that 100 medals that you would have gotten from the anniversary event. So, and then the other thing is the Mog medals. Technically, you're getting 5 less now, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. And, you get a maximum of 75, and then you also get a maximum of 80, depending on if you already have those units maxed. So if you don't have those units maxed, then you're probably going to end up with a smaller amount. And that would apply either now or during the golden age. So you are also able to get 20 stars using the 100 9 million downloads coins, but we're not even going to count that yet, because if you're already at the maximum of star medals, it's going to be a 100 to 20 conversion. So 5 stars per shard. So you're only going to be able to get 5 stars per 9 million medals. So you're only going to be able to get 20 stars total. And then that's going to convert really crappily to shards. And you can get a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4. So that doesn't really convert very well. And that's definitely one of the points that Dr. Diggs made, and I 100% agree with what he said on that. All right, so let's keep going. I was able to find it on Dr. Diggs' channel. So this is also during the anniversary. This was another one of those paid pulls. This was the 100 UR unit shard pull. So this is essentially the same thing, where instead of getting, units, instead of getting 40 shards, you're actually getting 100 shards per unit. So this is actually better in a lot of ways. And then this also came with 100 medals, 100 anniversary medals. So let's compare that to today's, back in last week when it was Charlotte, we had the 100 UR unit medal shop. It's pretty much the same shop, except now you get the 9 million medals. Again, I 100% agree that those medals are crappy in terms of converting to stars to shards. And then I also wanted to point out that this 100 UR unit shop, unlike the 10 UR unit, didn't have star medals. So we're not going to get any shards from star medals. However, if you look right in the middle there, you do have a chance to get Charlotte, who was the banner unit at the time. And if we go back one slide, you can see that there was no Yuna, there was no Titus on this banner. I actually wasn't able to double check if they were actually in the drop rate, but I believe if they were in the drop rate, they would be featured here on the front. So that is sort of already an advantage of the current banner, is that you do have the possibility of getting 100 shards of the new unit. So if you do end up getting that, it is luck, but I feel like you do have a pretty good chance considering you have one retry. If you do end up getting that 100 shards, that pretty much pays for whatever the coins would have gotten you. But then again, that's technically taking 100 out of your pulls. So I don't know if you really want to count that, but what I'm trying to say is that there is an advantage to this banner. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to point out, especially with the 100 shard banner, is that you're still also getting Mog medals from that. And so those would actually be 1,000 Mog medals, since it's 100 times 10 instead of 40 times 10. So you're getting 1,000 Mog medals out of that. So going by the old system during Final Fantasy X, during the Golden Age, you are capped at 150 total Mind Spheres from the Mind Sphere shop. So as I mentioned before, you could get 80 with the 400. So there's 70 shards left, and that's going to cost you 350 Mog Metals. Not too bad of a deal. But going by the current system, you were able to get 75 shards before, so there's going to be 75 left for you to get if you want to have the equivalent of the 150 from before. So to get the 75 shards, you would still have to finish off step 2, so that would take 150 for the 25 left on step 2, and for step 3, the 101 through 150 step, you would have to get 350. This is to round out the 150 of that we were limited to before. But the key thing now is that we're not limited to that anymore. So whatever you end up pulling extra from the 100 unit shard banner is going to convert to 1,000 Mog Metals. And so with this little calculation here, we're only going to be spending 500 of our Mog Metals. So we're going to have somewhere between, 0 and 500 left. Again, it completely depends on what units you already have maxed to level 99. But if you do have all of them, assuming the most, you're going to have 500 shards left over. Assuming a medium case, you might have 100 to 200 shards left, Mog Metals left over. And you're going to be able to buy more shards from that. So the anniversary medals, in my eyes, are kind of made up in different ways. As I mentioned, we are getting the Guild banner shards straight from the Guild banner. And now we're also getting a higher cap of Mind Spheres. So whatever the Mog Metals you have left over, you can freely just spend it here. And I feel like this is very good for, the big spenders of the game who pretty much have most characters maxed. You probably already have a ton of Mog Metals already, but you probably are going to get the most Mog Metals out of this. And so with the Mind Sphere shop, the good thing is that it only changes the rate every 50, unlike the Star Metal shop. So I think you actually get a much better value out of this. And there isn't like a jump from 5 to 10. It starts at 5, but going from the 201 to 250 step to the 251 to 400 step is not as big of a jump. It is expensive at that point, but hopefully I've kind of made my point that you are getting extra shards out of this. All right, so that's one thing I sort of wanted to address from Dr. Diggs' video. And so let's move on to sort of the next area. Another thing I wanted to talk about is he mentioned that we're sort of moving to be 100% like the JP server in terms of monetization. I don't know if I believe that. I understand what he's saying, like the Star Metals and the other stuff, the Mind Sphere shop, are sort of on par with the Japanese version. But you guys have to realize that if we were really on par with the Japanese version, I would quit this game. Something I didn't even realize until recently, I have a Japanese account, and for whatever reason, I decided, let me pull on Summer Lilith. And I noticed on Summer Lilith, I was spending a lot of viz, and I just didn't get her. And then I just started looking at the rates, and then I realized, hey, wait a second, their pity is actually terrible. Okay, so normally our pity is, when you get the meter to 100%, our pity is 25% chance of getting the unit. Their pity, however, is a 10% chance of getting the unit. So if you look at the little red box, like right under KelThaFunkee's body there, you can see it says, on the left, it says 25% chance in the guarantee slot. And on the right, it's in Japanese, but you can see the number is 10%. And if you don't believe that translation, you can see where I have highlighted in red is KelThaFunkee's name, both on the banner and in the little percentage area. So you can see on the left, it's 25% and it's 10% in the Japanese version. So it's the same thing with Summer Lilith and Ketone. If you look at them both combined, that's a total of 50%. That's a really good chance of pulling a unit. But if you look at them both combined in the JP version, it's a total of 20%. So that is actually not a good chance of pulling the units. So the reason I'm sort of saying this is because if we're gonna look at the JP version and say, oh, we're almost 100% on par with them in terms of monetization, not really, because if we have a 2.5 times better chance of pulling a unit than they do, then that means they're going to be spending 2.5 times as much money. Or not entirely sure if that's the exact math, but they're going to be spending more viz, more money to be getting the same unit that we're getting, and that's just to pull the unit. Okay, so I think that's really the only example I wanted to talk about for the interest of time. I could talk a lot about there's a lot of differences between JP and the global version, but I can save that for another video because I think that's just gonna take too long to sort of talk about. All right, so right here is the different 9 steps going across time. So the original 9-step, I believe, was in the Garvel and El Sorel banner. It might have been before that. I think Sakura might have come out before that. But this is an example of one of those banners where you have 2 units and you're actually getting 400 shards. These banners were pretty much insane, but I sort of just wanted to point out. So let me just sort of explain what I have. Top left is El Sorel and Garvel. Top right is Yuna and Titus. Bottom left is the Kingmont one, and the bottom right, I believe, is the Summer Kilfe one, but it's the same as any Star Metal 9-step. Okay, so if we kind of look at the 2 left ones, going from the top to the bottom, in the Kingmont one, it's not 400 shards, it's 200, and so it already feels like we lost out on a lot. But however, it's before it was random. You would either get Garvel or El Sorel. You had no control over it, and then it became, you know, not random. You got the unit that you wanted. It's Kingmont. It's not random anymore. Another change that we got on top of that is the EX job materials were added to the banner. So in a sense, that I'm not saying that's a one-to-one, you know, making up for the missing shards, but in a sense, that's sort of a way to make up for not having 2 units in the banner. They gave us the EX materials, etc., blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of how they did. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that that's what they did. So if we look at the top right, I'm actually gonna go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm here in the next slide. This is a more zoomed in picture of the Titus and Yuna banner. So if you actually look here, we're actually getting 400 shards, and we're also getting all the good EX material stuff. So I'm kind of looking at this, I'm just like, geez, I think Dr. Diggs is definitely right on this. Like, this banner was amazing. Like, it's crazy. It's probably the best you could have asked for. So I was kind of thinking, like, why can this one be so good? And sort of, I just pretty much came to the conclusion that this had to be just because it was a special, you know, anniversary collaboration banner, and that's why it was so good. Then I thought, yeah, maybe not. There's actually one more reason. So let me go into that reason in the next slide, and that is that there was no guaranteed pull for Yuna. And so I was kind of looking through this Reddit thread, and I saw that there were some people, I kind of just remember people talking about this in the past. I saw, you know, the first guy, 60K to get Yuna. Second guy saved a little over 100K for Yuna. He burned through his whole life savings, his whole savings to summon her. It hasn't been as bad since Orlando, where he spent 50K. Third guy cost him 40K, second pity. You know, next guy is 47K, next guy is 60K. So there are some people that ended up spending a lot more than they would have wanted, or what they would spend nowadays, just to have a guaranteed pull. It wasn't even guaranteed. It was just like a random pull for Yuna. There was a pity for sure, but these people were so unlucky that they one of them had to go to 100K. So I think that was the bad side of that banner. And it's very easy to remember. I'm not trying to like blame Dr. Diggs on this. Obviously, I didn't remember this either, but it's easy to remember that these banners were like super good in some way, but they also had a bad part to them, and there was no guarantee for Yuna. And Yuna is a very meta unit that almost everybody wanted, so I can see how people would go to their to the ends of their savings basically to pull Yuna. One of the things Dr. Diggs did mention was for the Bahamut, that was pretty much, terrible. All right, so in the next slide, I kind of also just wanted to mention this, basically the same thing. What were the sentiments during that banner? Did everyone really think this banner was amazing? And so these guys are kind of just responding to the guys I sort of just in the previous slide, and their bad luck. This is absolutely terrible. Hope you get some late game redemption. At least we still have 40 days. But yeah, I'm a bit surprised they didn't add a 200 gacha medal pity for her for global with how generous they've been otherwise. Feels bad. Second comment there, good luck. There's so much to spend that is so much to spend to come away empty-handed. I don't know how the F they think this is okay. So clearly I understand that nowadays there's a sentiment where Gumi is making bad decisions, but if we look at these comments, I feel like there's a clear sentiment that Gumi made a bad decision in terms of that. And the first guy mentioned the 200 gacha medal pity, so I feel like that may have already been in place for somebody else. But I believe after that we got more of a permanent guaranteed pity built into banners. All right, so that's sort of something else I wanted to point out, is that the banners weren't quite as good as we remember, and there was definitely some bad sides to them, and some people that thought they were basically bad decisions. Okay, moving on. So another thing that Dr. Diggs mentioned is the 7-day daily purchase. So the one he mentioned is the one in the middle, and I 100% agree with him that the 9 million download medals are pretty terrible in terms of buying shards. But the one at the top is the current KelThaFunkee one, the current KelThaFunkee one, which is basically the pretty standard one. So I don't have a problem with that. But also I kind of just wanted to go down to the bottom one where Summer, Lilith, and Kitone were both on the same one. Granted, I know these are like old units in JP. Their EXs are new, so I think they are still good units. But I just wanted to point out that you did have a choice of the both of them. I think this is the first time they did this. And you actually have 2 extra steps where you can get extra banners. So if you're just building one, this doesn't really help you. In fact, I think you're missing probably a couple of shards, maybe 10. But if you're building both units, this does help you quite a bit, as you get an extra like 40 shards of total for both of them. And so I think that's actually pretty good. And so the reason I have that on the right is the exchange rate for the 9 million medals. And so you can see there it's 5-1 for the star medals, which I'll 100% agree with Dr. Diggs, is that that is a terrible conversion rate on top of the terrible conversion rate once you sort of max out on star medals. But I sort of just wanted to mention that I personally didn't really see this exchange shop as a way to get star medals. Again, because the 10 UR unit banner had star medals built into the summons once you pull the URs. What I saw this exchange shop was a chance to get some EX materials. We've all been asking for blossoms for a while, and they finally gave it to us. Maybe a little bit too late. I know Hiroki's gift had 6 blossoms, and I know last month's Hiroki gift had another 6 blossoms. I believe you were able to get 5 here and then 1 more from the daily purchases for a total of 6. And honestly, you can see there, right, my screenshot says limited 2. So I already bought 3 of them. So that's what I ended up spending my medals on. I did not want to spend anything on star medals. So in sort of what I'm seeing is, yes, we did have that one bad 7-day purchase, but I think we also had a pretty good one. So the way I see that is that they're just experimenting with different ways of doing it. And yes, I 100% agree that the medal one was not as good as, you know, the normal festival medals that we're used to. But I feel like they were more trying to focus us on getting those EX materials. All right, so let's continue. Okay, so the free units, I'm pretty sure Dr. Diggs didn't mean to say like we're not getting free units now, but I just wanted to throw this in there just to be sure. I think he was more saying, he just sort of mentioned free Titus and free 9S just to kind of add to how fun and good the anniversary event was. But just to kind of flesh this out, we did recently get Corwell, and we do have the selection quest going on. And then we are soon about to get Lemur or Remur, I'm not sure what her name is going to be, along with Tifa and Prompto in their respective events. We're most likely going to get those for free. And then in terms of free EX units, we're going to get our standard Tyrell and Krace, which we kind of already have, but we're going to get free Mind Spheres for them. Or you might have already farmed your free Mind Spheres for Tyrell. So we're going to get them for free, basically, is all I'm trying to say. Again, I don't think Dr. Diggs meant that we're not getting free units, because obviously he makes content about selection quests and whatnot. All right, so one other thing that he brought up was sort of like Hiroki is not doing a good job, you know, convincing Square or whatever. I just kind of wanted to point out one thing is that Hiroki is not really our friend. We are more of in a business relationship with him more than anything else. It does seem like, you know, he gives us gifts and he brings us good news and he's like, you know, fighting Square to give us a better deal. But honestly, I don't believe that's what his role is. I think he is the global producer. And the way I see that is he's the one that decides what these banners are. He's the one that decides these medals. He's the one that decides, you know, pretty much everything. The hard part for him is, you know, getting the collaboration units and stuff like that. But then also you sort of have to think that he, as I wrote here, he needs to make sure his team eats and pays rent. And he needs to make money for Square Enix using their IP. Otherwise, the game wouldn't exist. So basically, his role is to make money, essentially. I don't think of him as a bad guy because he is providing employment for a bunch of people. He is the chosen one. He's done a good job in the past, according to Square Enix or whoever's in charge. So he is the chosen one to take care of the task, and he is taking care of his people at the same time pleasing Square Enix. I don't fault him for that, but at the end of the day, that is his job. His job is not to be our friend. So any kind of thinking that he's out there bending to the will of Square Enix, or that he's out there not doing a good enough job with Square Enix, I don't think it's that. I think it's more of he is doing his job of, you know, trying to give us a little bit of stuff, you know, a little bit of extra, I guess you can say. But his main job is to make money for his team and for, you know, the people that he works for. Obviously, I still have a ton of respect for Hiroki, and I think it's fine to play along, quote unquote, and see him as the good guy. I think it's more than just play along. I think he's a good guy and everything, for sure. The same way we immerse ourselves and, you know, we play along and believe that this fantasy game is almost like a real world. We immerse ourselves in that. So that's kind of one thing I wanted to say about Hiroki. And sort of, this is kind of, maybe I won't get into this too much, but this is sort of what a video game producer does, according to Wikipedia. So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's kind of between what I'm saying and what Diggs is saying. So I'm not going to say I'm 100% right on this. but the negotiating contracts, including licensing, so that's Square Enix or any other collab, acting liaison between department, development staff, and stakeholders, developing and maintaining schedules and budgets. So he's the one that plans out the events, according to this. Overseeing creative art and stuff and development. So he's the guy that oversees the teams, ensuring timely delivery. So again, planning out the events and sort of just fitting banner units into the right place, scheduling timely quality assurance, fixing bugs and stuff like that. Maybe not the greatest job on that, but that can be difficult. Arranging for beta testing and focus groups. I have no idea how that works. Localization, pretty good job on that. Everything's in English. All the voices are in English. Pitching game ideas. So Hiroki is responsible for any kind of new content, any kind of new modes and stuff like that. So we should definitely get on him for not doing that if he does that. So my point there is sort of, as I mentioned, Hiroki has a job to do, and I don't think he's necessarily out there to try to help us against Square. He is working for Square, and he's trying to just find a balance of what can be good for Square and what's good for us. All right, so another thing that Diggs mentioned was that it's an obfuscated system now, and I will 100% agree with that, but I think the obfuscation is sort of what allows us to still benefit from it. I still think that we're still getting a good amount of shards and whatnot from the banners. I still think that we're getting all that stuff. So part of the way, it's just the nature of the free-to-play game, guys. You have to obfuscate stuff and make it sort of harder to understand and sort of make people confused so that people make wrong purchasing decisions and end up spending more money in the game. That's kind of how it works. That's how any gacha game works. I'm sorry that it has to be like this. I'm sorry that Hiroki has to resort to this. I really don't think he's making terrible decisions here. But you have to sort of think of it as, doing as well as we were doing before. It's sort of like hidden, and you sort of have to figure out. I think of it almost as a game is figuring out how to beat the system. You essentially have to figure out how to beat the system is kind of what I'm trying to say. And maybe some people just don't want to do that, and that's fine. Like, I get it. This game is a lot of work already, but I would hope in my heart of hearts that people would make Reddit posts and sort of break down, oh, this is where you get this is where you get that. And I feel like people have done that in the past, but I guess I'm not seeing it quite as much. I'm more so seeing people sort of saying that the system is bad and not really trying to figure it out as much as I personally would like. And so I sort of am coming to the wrapping up the end of this video. And my plea, I have a plea for Dr. Diggs and for pretty much anyone on Reddit, is to please look at the systems overall and not just what seems to be equivalent. So it's very easy to say that the 9 million medals don't compare to the anniversary medals, but hopefully, I hope that I've been able to show you that a lot of those shards and other benefits are kind of just there, but you sort of have to look for them, you have to work for them, and, sort of figure out how you're benefiting now versus how you were benefiting before. It's definitely different. You just have to try to keep up with all the changes. And so the second plea I'm trying to make is please be careful comparing the JP versions. Some things they seem like direct parallels, but the JP version is much more brutal than you think. And again, if you guys want, I can go into the differences in the Japanese version. I'm pretty sure you know some of them, but I'm not sure if anyone's really gone in depth into them. So I'm willing to do that if you guys want. Please just let me know. But as I pointed out, there's very big differences in the pity system. For example, another example is I'm pretty sure if you get a UR unit, the pity bar doesn't go up. They definitely get less visure on the JP side. There's a lot of different things. And again, I can cover that if you guys want. But please make sure you look at the JP version in a complete sense, because there's a lot of different things going on in the Japanese version, which are a lot worse than global. Okay, and sort of the last thing I'm saying is I know it's easy to make mistakes when creating content. I have made plenty of mistakes. I have said the wrong thing, etc. I don't think that's a problem. But please do your best to inform and clarify systems than to make a judgment beforehand. So I'm sort of just saying, like, there's definitely some obfuscation going on. I would hope to see more content that's sort of helping the users clear up, like, okay, this is where you get this is what makes up for this, bam, 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 instead of just assuming that it's bad, or this part is bad compared to this. That's really all I would want. Okay, so now I just want to make sure that I don't mean to be saying bad things about Dr. Diggs. I just sort of want to clarify, because I sort of feel like sometimes it's very easy to call the game bad and say that bad things are happening, but I want to just clarify it, because I feel like good things are happening overall, and I don't think it's fair to say that the game is in a worse state than it was before, because there's definitely plenty of things that we are benefiting from. And so let me just read this. Dr. Diggs' video was more about the way he feels about spending in the game. His argument is definitely valid in terms of feeling good spending. If you feel like you're not getting as much as you were before, it's pretty easy to feel shafted. I think that's more of what he was trying to convey. So basically, what I feel like he was saying is that as a big spender, I'm assuming he's a big spender, and other big spenders, they probably feel like they're not getting as much out of the banners and out of the shops and all the stuff as they were before. That's definitely a valid thing. You do need to feel good about your purchases, and I think that's what his video was more about, not necessarily going into the equivalence of it, into the math of it, the way I'm doing in this video. So I definitely am okay with him sort of talking about his feelings. I just kind of wanted to make sure that we don't get mixed up with our feelings versus what's actually happening, and basically the math of it, and the direct comparison of banners and past banners and present and future banners. All right, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say. So let me give my final verdict. There will never be a perfect improvement to a system in this game. Any benefit will get balanced out in some way. The benefits I pointed out may require a bit more work or thinking, but in my opinion, they are overall giving us more ways to get shards. And overall, I think it's all an improvement, and it's getting much easier for me to build units. So I've been building Summer Lilith, and I feel like I haven't been spending as much Vizier on her, but I have definitely spent some Mog Metals to get her Mind Spheres and stuff like that. So in terms of that, I think it's been easier. So also wanted to point out that this isn't even a collaboration event or an anniversary event. Yeah, I get that it's the Charlotte event, it's the summer units, I totally get that should be special, and that's exactly the point that Dr. Diggs was trying to make. But I think the anniversary, the main Final Fantasy games, those are going to be the better deals, the better moneymaker. We're going to be happy, Hiroki's going to be happy. And of course, we have yet to see what's going to actually happen for Final Fantasy VII Remake. We might not get any kind of good medals. In that case, Dr. Diggs, feel free to make any video you want. But I'm sort of thinking that we're not going to get equivalent medals as the Final Fantasy X medals. But I have a feeling that we're going to get a little bit better than what we're getting now, than these stupid 9 million medals. But we have yet to see. As I mentioned, we are getting 400 Mind Spheres total, so I'm not sure if they're going to be able to make up for that in a way that we can just sort of buy medals. But we shall see. We could only leave it for the future. All right, guys, I know that was a long one. I'm sorry. I knew it was going to be long, but I sort of just wanted to make sure to address as much of stuff as possible. Thank you guys for watching, and let me know if you have any comments. Please feel free to comment anything in the comments. If you hate me, go ahead, sure. If you think I'm wrong on anything, please go ahead and comment that. But I mean, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to point everything out that I saw was going on, just to kind of make sure people were clear on things. And so, guys, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. I kind of enjoy sort of finding differences like this, so I'm going to try to make a few more videos sort of like this and sort of explain things in this way. If you guys like this, definitely stay tuned, and hopefully I'll see you in those videos. Alright guys, take care. Bye.